Admiral Elizabeth Iron Eyes Morgan stood at the panoramic window of her underground command center, her weathered fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of black coffee. The massive holographic display before her showed 50 red dots approaching Jupiter's orbit. Each dot represented a Draconian warship, part of their infamous 7th Annihilation Fleet. The name alone had sent civilizations into surrender, but today that was about to change. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of what they were about to attempt. Lieutenant James Cooper's fingers danced across his quantum interface. "The Draconians are maintaining their approach vector, Admiral. Their energy signatures suggest their weapons are powered down. They still think we're just primitive apes playing with rockets." A slight smile crossed Morgan's face. Humanity's greatest deception had taken decades to craft. Carefully orchestrated technological advancements that made Earth appear to be centuries behind the galactic average. The truth was far different. "Time to intercept?" she asked, taking another sip of coffee. 3 minutes until they crossed the quantum net perimeter, Mom." The quantum net, invisible, undetectable, and completely unlike anything the Draconians had ever encountered. 30 years of reverse engineering technology from their crashed scout ship had given humanity insights that the militaristic reptilians had never considered. Where they saw weapons, Earth's scientists saw possibilities. "Commander Rodriguez, status of the dimensional pocket." "Stable and ready, Admiral. The Jupiter facility reports all quantum anchors are aligned. We'll only have one shot at this." Morgan nodded, her steel-gray eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. The Draconians had been terrorizing the galaxy for centuries, demanding tribute and subjugating lesser species. They'd bypassed Earth initially, considering it too primitive to bother with. That oversight was about to cost them their most powerful battle group. 2 minutes to intercept," Cooper announced. The tension in the command center ratcheted up several notches. Morgan placed her coffee cup down and straightened her uniform. "Begin final sequence. Remember, people, if this works, we'll have trapped 50 of the most advanced warships in known space. If it fails," she let the implication hang in the air. "Energy levels nominal," Rodriguez reported. "Quantum field stabilizers at maximum capacity. The pocket is ready to receive." On the display, the red dots crossed an invisible line. Immediately, subtle changes began occurring in the fabric of space around the Draconian fleet. They wouldn't notice anything at first. The technology was too alien, too far removed from their understanding of physics. "First ship entering the field," Cooper announced. No signs they've detected anything unusual. Morgan watched as the lead ships of the fleet began to slow, almost imperceptibly. The quantum net was taking hold, gently at first, then with increasing strength. The laws of physics themselves were being rewritten in a carefully controlled bubble of space-time. "We're receiving transmissions from the Draconian fleet," Lieutenant Sarah Thompson reported from communications. They're reporting instrument malfunctions, navigation systems failing across all ships. "Maintain radio silence," Morgan ordered. "Let them think it's a natural phenomenon." The red dots on the display began to flicker as the ships were gradually pulled into a different dimensional plane. The Draconians' mighty engines, capable of pushing their ships to near-light speeds, were useless against the fundamental forces being manipulated around them. 80% of the fleet now within the pocket, Rodriguez reported. Quantum stability holding at acceptable levels. Morgan watched as ship after ship vanished from normal space, their crews completely unaware that they were being imprisoned in a bubble of altered reality. No destruction, no violence, just the elegant application of physics that the Draconians, for all their military might, had never imagined possible. "Final ships entering the pocket now," Cooper announced. "Timeline matches our simulations exactly." Within moments, the last red dot flickered and vanished from the display. Where the mighty 7th Annihilation Fleet had been, there was now only empty space. Phase 1 was complete. "Send word to the President," Morgan ordered. "Operation Pandora's Box is successful. Now we wait for them to come asking questions. She picked up her coffee cup again, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. And make sure our primitive facilities are ready for inspection. We have a show to put on. Commander Ashley Williams watched the Draconian shuttle descend through Earth's atmosphere, its obsidian hull reflecting the morning sunlight. The landing pad at Kennedy Space Center had been carefully prepared, old-style chemical rockets and experimental ion drives prominently displayed, all of them technological relics that would reinforce humanity's apparent backwardness. "They're right on schedule," Lieutenant Marcus Reed whispered beside her. "Betting that big one in the middle is Inquisitor Zexkar." The shuttle touched down with characteristic draconian precision. Its landing ramp extended, releasing the burst of pressurized air. 6 figures emerged, their scaled armor glinting. The leader stood nearly 8 feet tall, with dark crimson scales and cybernetic enhancements visible around his eyes. Williams stepped forward, expression carefully neutral. "Inquisitor Zexkar, welcome to Earth. I'm Commander Ashley Williams, United Space Command." The Draconian's cybernetic eyes wared as they focused on her. "Commander." His voice was deep, resonating with artificial harmonics. "I trust you understand why we're here." "Of course," Williams replied, gesturing toward the facility. "The disappearance of your fleet is deeply concerning. We're ready to assist your investigation in any way possible." Behind Zexkar, the youngest member of his team, scientist Kirval, according to their intelligence, was already scanning the environment with handheld devices. His movements were different from the others, more curious than militant. "Show me your propulsion research facilities," Zexkar demanded as they walked. "Your species has been making noticeable advances in the last decade." Williams led them through the carefully orchestrated tour. Every piece of equipment, every computer terminal, every prototype engine had been meticulously prepared. The truth lay thousands of miles away, buried deep beneath mountains and oceans. "As you can see," she explained, gesturing to a partially assembled ion drive, "we're still working on achieving efficient deep space propulsion. Our best engines can barely reach Mars in 3 months." Kirval approached the engine, his scanning device humming. "Interesting design choices," he commented, his voice softer than his superiors. "Though these field alignments seem inefficient." "We're still learning," Williams replied with practiced humility. "Perhaps your people might offer some guidance in these matters." Zexkar made a dismissive sound. "We're not here to advance your primitive technology, Commander. We're here to determine if you're responsible for our fleet's disappearance." "With all due respect, Inquisitor," Williams spread her hands in a gesture of openness. "How could we possibly affect a fleet of your capability? We can barely maintain our orbital stations." The tour continued through laboratories and testing facilities, each one reinforcing Earth's carefully crafted image. But Kirval kept falling behind, his attention caught by seemingly random details, atmospheric readings, quantum fluctuations, subtle anomalies that the others ignored. In the main control room, Williams noticed him staring intently at a standard atmospheric monitoring display. His scanner was giving him readings that clearly confused him. "Is something wrong?" she asked, approaching him while Zexkar interrogated her staff about recent space activities. "These quantum decay rates," Kirval muttered, more to himself than her. "They don't match any normal pattern." Almost as if he caught himself, mandibles tightening. "Nothing of consequence, Commander. Merely scientific curiosity." Williams maintained her pleasant smile, but internally, she made a note to have the atmospheric quantum signature adjusted. They'd expected the military leaders to be thorough, but this young scientist might prove more troublesome than anticipated. "Commander Williams," Zexkar called sharply, "your lunar facilities. We'll inspect them next." "Of course, Inquisitor. Though I should warn you, they're even more primitive than our Earth installations. We've only managed to establish basic mining operations there." As they headed toward the shuttle pad, Williams received a subtle vibration from her neural implant, a message from Admiral Morgan. Quantum anomalies detected near Jupiter. The pocket is fully stable, but our guests might have some interesting sensor readings to examine soon. The game was becoming more complex, but Williams had trained for this her entire career. As she watched the Draconians discuss something in their native tongue, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Let them chase shadows and censor ghosts. Earth's greatest secret remained safe, hidden behind a carefully constructed mask of technological inadequacy. For now, Dr. Michael Blackwood stood before the massive quantum observation window, 2 miles beneath Mount McKinley. The sight before him never failed to take his breath away. 50 Draconian warships, frozen in a perfect moment of time, their sleek hulls suspended in a crystalline structure of altered spacetime. The dimensional pocket glowed with an ethereal blue light, ripples of quantum energy dancing across its surface. Status report. He called out to his team, eyes fixed on the nearest Draconian vessel. Through the quantum window, he could see the crew, motionless at their stations, unaware that for them, time had nearly stopped. Dr. Emily Nash responded from her station, her fingers moving across holographic controls. Primary containment fields are holding steady, but we're seeing unusual fluctuations in the quantum matrix. The energy signature has changed in the last 6 hours. Blackwood frowned, turning away from the window. The labyrinth facility hummed with power around them, its fusion reactors channeling enough energy to power the entire West Coast. Show me the changes. A 3-dimensional display materialized between them, showing cascading patterns of quantum energy. Red markers highlighted the anomalies, tiny distortions in the fabric of spacetime that shouldn't exist. Here, Emily pointed to a particularly dense cluster of anomalies. The pocket isn't just containing the fleet anymore. It's interacting with them somehow. Their quantum signatures are beginning to synchronize. That's impossible, Blackwood muttered, though he knew better than to dismiss anything as truly impossible anymore. The stasis field should prevent any form of interaction. He walked to his primary research station, passing rows of quantum computers that would make the visible technology in their surface facilities look like children's toys. The truth about humanity's technological advancement was here, hidden beneath mountains and oceans in facilities like the labyrinth. Run a full spectrum analysis, he ordered. I want to know exactly what's happening in there. The computers hummed to life, pouring out streams of data. Something caught his eye, a pattern in the quantum fluctuations that seemed eerily familiar. Emily. He called out, pull up the original scans from the crashed Draconian scout ship, the ones from 30 years ago. The display shifted, showing ancient readings taken from the vessel that had changed humanity's destiny. When that scout ship had crashed in the Mojave Desert, it had given humanity its first glimpse of true advanced technology. But more importantly, it had shown them what they'd been missing. The quantum layer of reality that the Draconians used without truly understanding. Look at this, Blackwood pointed to matching patterns in both sets of data. The quantum signatures. They're not just similar, they're evolving. The pocket is causing some kind of resonance effect with the Draconian technology. Emily's face paled as she ran the calculations. Michael, if these readings are correct, the pocket isn't just a container anymore. It's becoming a lens, focusing and amplifying quantum forces we barely understand. An alarm chirped softly, drawing their attention to a secondary display. The quantum energy levels within the pocket had spiked again, higher than ever before. Get me Admiral Morgan, Blackwood ordered, his voice tight. And contact Dr. Reynolds topside. If these readings mean what I think they do, our perfect trap may have just become a ticking time bomb. As Emily rushed to make the calls, Blackwood returned to the quantum window. The trapped fleet still hung there, majestic and deadly, but now he saw them differently. Each ship was like a tuning fork, vibrating at quantum frequencies that were slowly, inexorably, building towards something unprecedented. He placed his hand against the transparent barrier, feeling the subtle vibrations of reality itself. Humanity had built this prison believing they understood the forces they were manipulating. Now, staring at the escalating readings on his displays, Blackwood realized they might have created something far more dangerous than they'd imagined. Behind him, Admiral Morgan's voice crackled through the quantum comm. "Talk to me, Doctor. How bad is it?" Blackwood watched another ripple of energy wash across the pocket's surface, stronger than the last. "Admiral," he replied, "I think we need to consider the possibility that we haven't just captured the Draconian fleet. We may have accidentally created a device that could tear apart the fabric of space itself." Dr. Jack Reynolds left another data tablet in the research lab's quantum physics section, carefully positioned where the young Draconian scientist would find it. He'd been leaving these breadcrumbs for days now, subtle hints about Earth's true understanding of quantum mechanics, waiting to see if Curval would connect the dots. The facility's primitive computers beeped with artificial slowness around him as he pretended to analyze basic particle acceleration data. The real computers, the quantum processors that could calculate parallel universes, lay hidden far below. "Your atmospheric quantum variance calculations are fascinating, Dr. Reynolds." Jack turned to find Curval standing in the doorway, holding the tablet. The young Draconian scales shifted colors slightly, a sign of intellectual excitement that Jack had learned to recognize. "Just theoretical work," Jack shrugged, maintaining the facade. "Probably nothing useful." "Perhaps." Curval moved closer, lowering his voice. "But these patterns you've documented, they match anomalies I've detected since arriving. Anomalies that shouldn't exist in a planet with your level of technology." Jack studied the young scientist. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. And dreading. His neural implant tingled, reminding him that every word was being monitored by the labyrinth's security systems. "What kind of anomalies?" he asked carefully. Curval activated his personal quantum scanner, displaying a holographic readout. The quantum decay rates in Earth's atmosphere are artificially structured, like ripples in a pond, spreading out from a central disturbance. His mandibles clicked with excitement. "A disturbance near Jupiter's orbit, where our fleet vanished." "That's quite a leap," Jack replied, but his heart was racing. Curval was sharper than they'd anticipated. "Is it?" The young Draconian cybernetic eyes focused intently. "Yesterday I detected a 3 picosecond temporal distortion in the lunar quantum field. Today I found your theoretical calculations that perfectly predict such an event." Jack felt the weight of multiple futures pressing down on him. In the labyrinth, Dr. Blackwood would be watching this conversation, evaluating the threat. The simple solution would be to deny everything, maintain the deception. But something in Curval's earnest scientific curiosity resonated with him. "If what you're suggesting were true," Jack said carefully, "it would mean humans have technology far beyond what we've shown." "Yes." Curval stepped closer. "It would mean your species has mastered quantum manipulation at a level that even we haven't achieved. And it would mean—" He hesitated, mandibles twitching. "It would mean you know what happened to our fleet." Before Jack could respond, his neural implant buzzed with an urgent message from Blackwood. "The pocket is destabilizing. Quantum resonance cascading. Tell him what you need to. We're running out of time." Jack took a deep breath, weighing decades of secrecy against the growing crisis. "What if," he said slowly, "you're right? What if we did trap your fleet? But what if we're now facing something none of us predicted?" Curval's scales shifted to a deeper hue. "The quantum distortions are growing stronger. I've been monitoring them. Whatever you've done, it's having an effect on space-time itself." "Follow me," Jack said, making a decision that could either save or doom them all. He pressed his palm against a seemingly ordinary wall panel, and a hidden scanner read his quantum signature. "Dr. Reynolds," the security system's voice was barely a whisper. "This action violates multiple protocols." "Override authorization, Reynolds Omega-9, he replied. "And inform Admiral Morgan that we need our young friend's help." The wall slid aside, revealing a quantum elevator, technology that shouldn't exist on Earth for centuries. Curval's eyes widened, his scanner almost dropping from his clawed hand. "We don't have much time," Jack said, stepping into the elevator. "What you're about to see is humanity's greatest secret, and possibly our greatest mistake." Caraval hesitated for just a moment before joining him. "Why trust me with this?" "Because," Jack replied as the elevator began its descent toward the labyrinth, "sometimes the only way to prevent a disaster is to work together. And right now, your fleet isn't just missing. It's become part of something that could tear reality apart." Admiral Elizabeth Morgan stood in the labyrinth's primary command center, watching as 200 red dots appeared at the edge of the solar system. The first extinction fleet lived up to its name. Each vessel was a city-sized engine of destruction, designed to reduce entire worlds to ash. "They're not even trying to hide their approach," Lieutenant Cooper reported from his station. "Multiple quantum wake signatures. They want us to know they're coming." "Of course they do," Morgan muttered. "They think we're helpless." She turned to Dr. Blackwood, who was studying the quantum readings with increasing concern. "How's our unwanted guest settling in?" "Caraval is adapting quickly," Blackwood replied, not looking up from his displays. "His insights into draconian quantum technology might prove invaluable. But Admiral, we have a bigger problem." The main display shifted, showing a three-dimensional model of the dimensional pocket near Jupiter. The trapped fleet glowed with an increasingly unstable energy signature, ripples of quantum distortion spreading outward like waves in a pond. "The pocket's quantum resonance is amplifying exponentially," Blackwood explained. "Adding more ships would be like throwing antimatter into a fusion reactor." Morgan's neural implant buzzed with urgent updates. Reports were flooding in from Earth's surface. Gravity fluctuations in major cities, electronic systems failing without explanation, and strange lights appearing in the skies worldwide. Their carefully maintained facade of technological primitiveness was crumbling. "Time until the first extinction fleet reaches Jupiter's orbit?" she asked. 17 hours at current velocity," Cooper answered. "They're moving slower than standard approach speed, probably scanning for whatever took their first fleet." Commander Williams' hologram materialized in the command center. "Admiral, Inquisitor's X-Car is demanding answers about the atmospheric anomalies. Our cover story about solar flares isn't holding up." "It won't matter soon," Morgan replied. "Have our surface facilities detected the approaching fleet yet?" "Yes, Mom. I've ordered the expected level of panic and confusion. Our orbital defense platforms are scrambling to respond." The Admiral allowed herself a grim smile. Even now, they maintained the deception. But as she watched the quantum distortions spreading through the solar system, she wondered if they'd finally outsmarted themselves. "Dr. Blackwood," she turned back to the scientist, "what happens if we don't capture this fleet? If we let them reach Earth?" Blackwood finally looked up, his face grave. "They'll glass the planet. But if we do capture them," he gestured to his calculations, "the dimensional pocket could collapse, taking half the solar system with it." A junior technician rushed into the command center, face pale. "Admiral, we're detecting temporal anomalies in major population centers. 3 minutes of time just," repeated in New York City. Morgan's decision crystallized. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Evacuate all non-essential personnel from surface facilities to the deep bunkers, and get me a direct line to the President." "What are you planning?" Blackwood asked, already dreading the answer. "We built this trap using knowledge we barely understood," Morgan replied, watching the approaching fleet on the display. "Now we're out of good options. But if we're going down, we're taking them with us." The command center erupted into activity as her orders spread through the facility. On the surface, Earth's greatest secret was about to be revealed. But in the labyrinth, Dr. Blackwood stared at his quantum readings with growing horror. The dimensional pocket wasn't just destabilizing. It was beginning to affect the fundamental forces holding reality together. "Admiral," he called out, his voice tight with urgency. "The pocket, it's not just a containment field anymore. We've created something else, something that's been waiting since the beginning of time for someone foolish enough to open the door." Morgan turned to him sharply. Explain. The quantum resonance patterns. He pointed to the swirling energy signatures. They're not random. They're forming structures, complex patterns that shouldn't be possible. It's like we've accidentally tapped into something that existed before our universe, and now it's waking up. The world turned inside out for 3 minutes. Dr. Jack Reynolds watched in horror as reality itself stuttered, skipped, and rewound. In the labyrinth's main research chamber, he and Curville stood before the quantum observation window, watching as time fractured around them. The protected facility remained stable, but the surveillance feeds showed the chaos above. Cars driving backward, rain falling upward, and people experiencing the same moments twice. By the first egg, Curville whispered, his scales pale with shock. "What have you done?" "What have we done?" Jack corrected, frantically analyzing the quantum readouts. "Your fleet's quantum drives, combined with our dimensional technology. We've created something impossible." The trapped Draconian ships hung in the pocket dimension like flies in amber, but now they pulsed with an otherworldly light. Energy patterns danced between them, forming complex geometric shapes that hurt the eyes to look at. These patterns, Curville moved closer to the display, his scientific curiosity overtaking his fear. They're similar to theoretical models from our most ancient archives. Calculations about the space between spaces. Dr. Blackwood burst into the chamber, tablet in hand. "Reynolds, the quantum resonance. It's not just growing, it's becoming ordered. Structured." "I know." Jack pointed to where Curville was working. He's seen these patterns before, in Draconian records from before their space age. The 3 scientists huddled around the main quantum scanner. Data streamed across the display. Energy readings that defied known physics, temporal distortions that shouldn't be possible, and beneath it all, a rhythm like the heartbeat of reality itself. "The pocket dimension isn't just containing the fleet anymore," Blackwood explained. "It's using them as a lens, focusing and amplifying quantum forces that existed before our universe formed. The ship's quantum drives are acting as amplifiers." Curville's claws danced across the holographic interface, adding Draconian calculations to the mix. "These energy patterns, my people discovered similar signatures in ancient ruins across the galaxy. Structures that predated all known civilizations. We could never understand their purpose. And now we've accidentally built one," Jack said grimly. "But what is it for?" The answer came in the form of another temporal quake. This time, they watched through the quantum window as reality rippled around the trapped fleet. For a brief moment, something showed through the dimensional walls, shapes and geometries that shouldn't exist, movements that made no sense to human or Draconian eyes. "Lords of Light," Blackwood breathed. "We haven't just created a weapon. We've torn a hole in the quantum membrane that separates our universe from whatever that is." Alarms blared throughout the labyrinth. Admiral Morgan's voice crackled over the intercom. "The first extinction fleet has accelerated. They'll reach Jupiter's orbit in 3 hours. Dr. Reynolds, please tell me you have something." Jack looked at his colleagues. One human, one Draconian, both now united by the terror of what they'd discovered. "Admiral," he replied, "we need to contact the Draconian fleet immediately. The pocket dimension isn't just dangerous anymore. It's becoming a beacon." "A beacon for what?" Morgan demanded. Curville answered, his voice trembling slightly. "For them. The ones who built the ruins. The ones who existed in the spaces between universes. We've created a quantum signal that's calling them back." Through the quantum window, they watched as another pulse of energy rippled through the pocket dimension. The trapped ships glowed brighter, their quantum drives resonating with forces they were never meant to touch. And in the spaces between them, in angles that shouldn't exist, something was beginning to wake up. "We have 3 hours, Jack announced, turning to his companions. 3 hours to figure out how to close this door before whatever's on the other side comes through. And we'll need both fleets' help to do it." Curville's scales shifted to a deep blue of determination. "Then we must convince them quickly. Because if those are truly the beings from our ancient records, he paused, mandibles clicking nervously. Then this isn't just about Earth or the Draconian Empire anymore. This is about the survival of our entire universe. Admiral Morgan stood in the center of the labyrinth's primary command center, facing the holographic images of the Draconian High Command. Their scaled faces showed a mix of rage and disbelief as they processed what she just revealed. "You dare to admit this deception?" High Marshal Vexthor's voice boomed through the quantum comlink. "You trapped our fleet using technology stolen from our own vessels." "Not stolen," Morgan corrected, her voice steady. "Evolved. Your scout ship crashed here 30 years ago. We took your basic understanding of quantum mechanics and saw possibilities you never imagined." Behind her, Dr. Blackwood and Kirval worked frantically at the quantum controls. The dimensional pocket's energy readings were becoming increasingly erratic, reality itself groaning under the strain. "The human speaks truth." Kirval stepped forward, addressing his leaders. "Their innovation has taken our fundamental science in directions we never considered. But now we face something far worse than war." The young scientist transmitted the quantum data to the Draconian command ships. Morgan watched their expressions shift from anger to concern as they processed the readings. "These patterns," one of the elder scientists in their command spoke up. "They matched the ruins of the ancients, the quantum signatures we could never replicate. Because we weren't meant to," Kirval explained. "The human's dimensional trap has accidentally recreated something the ancients built purposefully, a door between universes, and something is trying to come through." As if to emphasize his point, another temporal quake shuddered through the solar system. The holographic projections flickered as time briefly ran sideways around Jupiter. Dr. Blackwood stepped forward, his voice urgent. "Your fleet's quantum drives are acting as amplifiers, strengthening the signal to whatever exists on the other side. If we don't shut this down now, what comes through will threaten both our civilizations." High Marshal Vexthor's scales shifted colors as he considered the situation. "And you expect us to trust you after this deception?" "No," Morgan replied. "I expect you to verify everything we've said. Your scientists can examine our data. Your military can inspect our facilities. But we have less than 2 hours before the pocket collapses completely. After that, nothing in this solar system will survive what comes next." The command center fell silent as the Draconian leaders conferred among themselves. Morgan's neural implant buzzed with updates from Earth's surface. More temporal anomalies, stronger this time. Reports of strange shapes being glimpsed in the quantum distortions, geometries that drove observers mad. Finally, Vexthor spoke. "Halt the advance of the first extinction fleet. Kirval, you will coordinate with the humans. The rest of our science division is incoming." His eyes fixed on Morgan. "But know this, Admiral. If this is another deception, we will reduce your world to atoms." "Understood." Morgan nodded. "Dr. Reynolds, begin transmitting our full quantum research data to the Draconian Science Division. Dr. Blackwood, prepare the containment protocols." The command center erupted into activity as humans and Draconians began working together for the first time in history. Quantum computers hummed as calculations were shared, theories tested, and plans formulated. "Admiral," Blackwood called out suddenly, his face pale. "The pocket, it's changing again." All eyes turned to the main display. The trapped fleet now pulsed with impossible colors, energy patterns weaving between the ships in fractals that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. And in the center of it all, something was taking shape. "By all the gods," Vexthor whispered, his usual military bearing shaken. "What is that?" Through the quantum sensors, they watched as space itself began to fold and unfold around the trapped ships. The Ancient's doorway was opening, and through it came glimpses of things that predated the very concept of time. "That," Morgan replied grimly, "is what happens when we play with forces we don't understand. Now let's figure out how to close that door before whatever's on the other side decides to step through." Time was running out. In the labyrinth's main chamber, humans and Draconians worked side by side, their previous enmity forgotten in the face of cosmic horror. Dr. Reynolds and Kerville stood before the quantum observation window, watching as reality itself threatened to tear apart. "The calculations are ready," Kerville announced, his scales shimmering with nervous energy. "If we channel the combined power of both fleets' quantum drives in a precisely synchronized pulse, we might collapse the pocket without destroying half the solar system," Jack finished. "But the timing has to be perfect." Admiral Morgan and High Marshal Vexthor coordinated their forces through quantum links. The first extinction fleet had taken position around the dimensional pocket, their massive ships forming a precise geometric pattern. "All ships report ready," Vexthor's voice resonated through the command center. "Quantum drives spinning up to maximum capacity." Dr. Blackwood monitored the dimensional readings, his face illuminated by the swirling patterns of impossible energy. "The pocket's quantum signature is reaching critical levels. Whatever's trying to come through, it's almost here." Through the observation window, they could see the trapped fleet pulsing with otherworldly light. The space between the ships had become a lattice of geometric patterns that hurt the mind to look at, and through them, something vast and incomprehensible was pushing against the fabric of reality. "Begin the sequence," Morgan ordered. "All ships, commence quantum pulse on my mark." The first extinction fleet's engines flared to life, their quantum drives harmonizing at frequencies that could tear atoms apart. In the pocket dimension, the trapped ships began to resonate in response. "Energy levels approaching theoretical maximum," Jack reported, watching the readings spike. "The pocket's starting to destabilize." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. The quantum readings went haywire as something shifted in the dimensional tear. "It's fighting back," Kerville shouted, his claws dancing across the controls. "The entity, it's trying to use our own quantum field against us." Time began to fracture around them. In the command center, they watched moments repeat and overlap. Outside the protected facility, reality itself buckled under the strain. "Maintain the sequence," Morgan commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We won't get another chance at this." The quantum drives of both fleets pulsed in perfect synchronization, their energy focused on the dimensional pocket. The trapped ships began to phase back into normal space, but something else was coming with them. "Look," Blackwood pointed at the observation window. Through the quantum distortions, they caught a glimpse of what lay beyond. Vast geometries of living mathematics, entities of pure quantum probability that had existed before the universe drew its first breath. "All ships, maximum power," Vexthor roared. "Push them back." The combined might of human ingenuity and draconian technology surged against the dimensional tear. Reality groaned under the strain as two universes fought for dominance. "The pocket's collapsing," Jack announced, watching the readings. Quantum field integrity at 15% and falling. In a final, desperate push, the unified fleets channeled every ounce of power they had. The dimensional pocket imploded with a silent flash that rippled through quantum space. The trapped ships phased back into reality as the tear sealed itself, leaving behind only echoes of what they'd glimpsed beyond. Hours later, Morgan stood with Vexthor in the labyrinth's observation deck, watching as human and draconian rescue ships helped the crews of the formerly trapped fleet. "Your species surprised us," Vexthor admitted. "Not just with your technology, but with your foresight. You prepared for war without letting it define you." Morgan nodded. "And your people surprised us with your ability to adapt when faced with a greater threat. Perhaps that's the lesson here. There are some forces in this universe too dangerous to face alone." Indeed, the High Marshal turned to her. "The High Command has approved the knowledge exchange program. Together, we might be better prepared for whatever else lurks between the dimensions." As they watched the combined fleets working together against the backdrop of Jupiter, both leaders knew the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had revealed its true capabilities, the Draconians had found respect for innovation over tradition, and both species had glimpsed something that would forever change their understanding of reality. The mystery of the vanishing fleet had been solved, but it had opened the door to far greater questions about the nature of space, time, and the ancient forces that lurked in the quantum depths of the universe.